With Hashem's loving grace, tonight we're learning one of Rebbe Nachman's special short tales, The Horse and the Pump. And we're starting a series of Rebbe Nachman's shorter tales, and we're going to connect them with Rebbe Nachman's tales and Likutei Moharan, that we're going to have a little bit of both. At the end of the tale, when we finish telling the tale, and we will take a look into Likutei Moharan, where Rebbe Nachman is talking about the specific lesson that he brings in this tale. So, Baruch Hashem, hope everyone finds the lesson meaningful, and we'll probably see ourselves, because we're going to see how the evil inclination fools us and how we make ourselves gullible to the evil inclination. How? When we pursue our bodily lusts and not pursue our spiritual desire to get closer to Hashem. When we prefer body over soul, this is what happens. So Rebbe Nachman tells this beautiful short tale about the horse and the pump. And it's this greedy villager, and he didn't believe in the forces of the dark side. He didn't believe in spirituality, the angel, the force of the dark side, but they didn't. So the dark side decided they're going to have fun with him. They don't believe, that's fine. So one wintry evening, what maybe you call him a demon, but it's a dark side spiritual force, dressed up like a Ukrainian Cossack and knocked on the villager's door. Well, he said, "Good evening, honorable countrymen," said the Cossack in perfect pre-vodka etiquette. He says, "I'm in need of some quick cash, so I'm selling my horse." You know, the Cossacks, they were wonderful horsemen. It was a great cavalry and a beautiful horse. So the Cossack says to the villager, he says, "Look at this thoroughbred. It's worth a minimum of 25 gold rubles, and all I'm asking you for is 5 rubles. Wow, the intrigued villager, he stepped outside. And most villagers, they know how to just judge a horse or a cow when they see one. And he saw this most stunning chestnut brown thoroughbred. Never seen a horse like that. And the horse was no more than 3 or 4 years old, which is the best years ahead of it, the very beginning of its prime. And it held its head high, and it projected an aura of strength and speed and confidence. Well, the villager, he figured that in the big market of Berdichev, this horse is going to bring at least 100 gold rubles, and it's only cost him 5. So he ran back inside his cabin, and he opened up a pit in the ground under his bed. That's where he kept his money, and he pulled out 5 shiny gold rubles with the Tsar's portrait engraved on them. So he gave it to the demon, and the horse was his. No, the horse is. So next day, he made his journey from his hamlet, Kalinovka, which is south of Berdichev. He went into the big city of Berdichev, and he stayed overnight in the best hotel because he was confident that he was going to make a lot of profit on this deal. So after a good night's sleep and a healthy breakfast the next morning, he spoiled himself and treated himself. He made his way to the marketplace, and he leading his impressive thoroughbred by a bridle and reins. Well, the whole way from the hotel to the marketplace, people on the sidewalk were marveling at the horse. It's as if you can imagine driving down your neighborhood, somebody's driving a Maserati, and it's a showstopper. People are maybe used to seeing a Subaru or Mitsubishi, a Maserati driving down the road of your neighborhood. Well, here, this villager was walking down the road from the hotel to the marketplace, and people were marveling at the horse. "Look at that gorgeous horse." And they were raving and they complimenting. And they said, "Hey, comrade, can we sell that horse? How much do you want for that horse?" And the villager says, "No, not here, not in the middle of a vulgar place, in the middle of the sidewalk. No, we're going to go to the market." He says, "And when I get to the market, the individual makes the best offer, we'll sell it, because this is no ordinary horse." So the villager didn't realize how prophetic his words were, that this is no ordinary horse. So without blinking an eye, the first livestock trader offered the villager 100 rubles. This is what he imagined. He thought, this is 100 rubles. This is 12 times the price he paid, 1,200% profit. Just as the villager, he'd hoped. There, right away, you got your hope? That's it. Go ahead, sell it. No, but a little voice of greed whispered in the villager's ear. He says, "Are you crazy? Don't be daft. If a horse trader offers you 100 rubles without haggling, that means he'll sell it for at least double. So your horse is worth at least 200 rubles. So a nobleman overheard the conversation between the villager and the horse trader, and he interjected. He said, "Excuse me, villager, don't sell the horse to the trader. I'll pay you 200 rubles for such a fine animal, and in cash right here and now." cash right here and now. So the villager's jaw dropped. Wow, this is what he wanted? And now doubled right away comes this nobleman, gave him 200 rubles. But then it's double what he dreamed of. His now dream is doubled. Now he's got 2,400% profit on his original 5 ruble investment. But came back that little voice in the ear, that little nasty itty bitty committee that says in the ear, gives him this is the evil inclination speaking. And it's the little voice comes in, says in his ear, "Are you kidding? They think you're a stupid country bumpkin. I'd rather call you villager. They don't call you sir like they do in the city. They call you villager. They think you're stupid. So if a rich nobleman offers you 200 rubles without even arguing and cash, and that means that he's willing to pay at least double. So that horse is worth 400 rubles. So here's this. Well, at that point, along came a battalion commander, a Cossack colonel, and Cossack colonel with his entourage following him. And he had never seen such a fine steed. This is a Cossack. He is a Cossack colonel, and he is a specialist in horses. He's a master equestrian. He's a master warrior, and he knows a good war horse when he sees it. Young, fine, stable steed. And so he never saw such a fine horse. Fit. This is he hoped to get promoted to general. He says, as soon as I ride this horse, that was obviously promote me to general. And he hoped this would expedite his next promotion. So right away, the colonel said, "Villager, 400 rubles for that horse." Well, now, same thing. Villager didn't have a chance to think, but the little voice in his ear came back. "Are you crazy? The commander was 400? That means his pay was only worth half. Ask for 800. So the governor, he asked for 800, and the colonel went on, "No, he can't pay 800. But now, after the colonel left, the Cossack colonel, the governor walked by. And the governor walked by with his assistants, and the governor offered him 800. 800, 12 times 8, 96, 9,600% profit on that 5 ruble investment. So the villager thought twice. Well, if the government offers you 800, that means it's worth 1,600. So the villager refused. And the governor says, "Okay, you're not willing to take the 800? I'll give you my final offer. That's 1,000 gold rubles. Take it or leave it." Wow, 1,000 gold rubles. This was so much more than he paid. We were talking about a 20 to 5 to 12, and 12 times 1,000, 12 times 10, 120% profit, 1,200% profit. So the little voice again tell the villager, "No, it's worth more. If the governor is offered 1,000, then it's worth 2,000. But meanwhile, the horse was thirsty, and 2,000 rubles, it's probably no one could pay 2,000 rubles other than the king. They're going to have to go to the king, the emperor. But the horse was thirsty, and there was a water pump right in the middle of the town square. And the horse stuck his head in the water pump to take a drink. And all of a sudden, the water pump sunk in him. The horse disappeared. The water pump, he disappeared inside the faucet of the water pump. Well, all of a sudden, there was no more horse trader, no more nobleman, no more colonel, no more government. A bunch of irate peddlers gathered around the villager and said, "Well, what are you yelling about?" The villager cried, "My horse, my horse, my horse." And he's pulling his hair out, "My horse." And they said, "Stop yelling. This is unacceptable in the middle of the town, the village, in the middle of the marketplace." And he's yelling, "My horse, my horse." There's the silence. So the villager couldn't control himself, and he thought he was insane. The dreams of his riches were sucked up by the pump, and that's it. So he continued to moan and wail, "My horse, my horse." Well, they came with sticks, and the more he yelled, the more all the peddlers and the merchants and the passersby, they started beating him. That's what they used to do to a person who was deranged. And that day, they beat him until he acted normal. So they beat him, and they finally walked away. How I beat him, and so sad. He's left in the mud by the pump, and he's crying. And just as everyone leaves, the horse sticks his head out of the pump, and he goes with a laughing neigh. The horse laughs at, and once again, he sees the horse stick his head up, and he says, my horse, here he is. He starts crying and starts yelling and starts screaming, "My horse." Well, the horse sticks his head back in the pump, and again crying, and horse, and other villagers come with the sticks again. Now he gets another round of beating. So again, as they walk away, the villager sat again dejected. He's been beaten twice. and he's bruised, and he's sitting in the mud on the sidewalk, and he's waiting by the water pump. And after everyone leaves again, once more, the horse takes his head out of the pipe, takes his head out of the faucet. Whole great big horse comes out of this thick, maybe 3 inch, 4 inch faucet and goes, gives him a neigh, like a neigh, a demon's laugh, and starts neighing. So once more, the villager, he cried at the top of his lungs, my horse, you see, here he is, the villager. So the villager got beaten a third time and then a fourth time until he finally accepted the fact that his horse was a fantasy. It was a prank of the evil inclination and the evil inclination's agents, they're called the shadim, the evil spirit. This was the shadim. And people say, why don't we see the shadim today? Because we're at such a low spiritual level that we don't see angels, we don't see shadim. But back in Rebbe Nachman's time, they saw these evil spirits. And the Baal Shem Tov, I think there was a movie in English called The Exorcist. Well, the Baal Shem Tov did that several times. They took evil spirits away from people. This is something we know in tradition. All right, but what do we learn from this story? Many of us are running after some type of fantasy horse. We have these illusions, and these illusions are inconsequential. Person dreams some kind of pipe dream. He wants a yacht. He wants to be the head of some big company. He wants to marry some movie star. He wants to be a recording artist at the top and appear in Hollywood, some type of thing. Right? And people have these dreams. The evil inclination gives person fantasies. They're not dreams, they're fantasies. And these fantasies of profits and pleasures that all have nothing to do with attaining our soul correction or our mission on earth, which we spoke about last night in a Muna Hour on our mission on earth. And nothing to do. All these fantasies. So what difference does it make whether you get from point A to point B in a nice British Ford or in a Maserati? No, but the British Ford, they don't know that they want people to look at them. And okay, Maserati, at least a Lamborghini. They can't have anything then. And they have all these fantasies. Fantasies have nothing to do. My brother, my sister, you don't need that in life. But the Yetzer Hara, he takes that and fuels something. It often does this. And this is all of Western society. We're laughing at the horse, got pumped. All of Western society is based on these fantasies. What's Hollywood about? What's Netflix about? Okay, a person is married, but Netflix shows them this Mr. Muscle, 22-inch biceps and the six-pack abs and this Miss Size 4 bikini and the married woman. She got a nice husband, but now she looks at this flash dancer on the screen, and the guy's got a nice wife, but now he looks at the bikini. All of a sudden they go home, they're not happy because they've got this fantasy in the head. That is that little voice putting it, oh, no, we have to have that. I'm not going to rest to have that. They go crazy. And people go with all types of fantasies and can't believe. But Hashem has helped us coach a lot of people over the years. And Marrow Peace, we see people come, they have fantasies in their head. And it's very difficult to tell someone, they come to you, your marital problems because the fantasies in your head. Your financial problems because the fantasies in your head. If both people look at what they spend money on, they spend money on needless things. Hashem gives us the money we need for what we need, but not for needless things. So Rebbe Nachman, he had a way of chastising. Rebbe Nachman didn't chastise us directly. This was like the rabbis of the Musar movement, where you got it between the eyes. Rebbe Nachman didn't do that. Did with a smile on his face. He told a story. And what they say in Hebrew, Hamevin, Yovin, that if you understand, that's fine, you understand. And if not, then goes over your head. Well, maybe the next time you hear the story, you'll understand. But the morals of his fables and his allegories are very biting. Somebody takes a good look at the story, we'd stop and think that Rebbe Nachman is talking about each of us, that we have this pipe dream. And what is Rebbe Nachman's definition of emunah? Satisfied with your lot, sameach b'chalko. And we see that in Torah Daled. In Torah Daled, Rebbe Nachman says, when a person knows that whatever Hashem is doing in his life is for the very best, that's an aspect of heaven. Not because everybody in heaven knows that everything is for the very best. But no, a person is not satisfied, not satisfied with Avamuna. I want this to be better. I want this to be better. I want this to be better. If we look at our lives and we look at our difficulties, we look at our financial difficulties, we look at our health difficulties, we look at whatever we have, well, maybe this saved us from being prisoners in a tunnel in Gaza. We don't know. Maybe this saved us from our souls being put in the Holocaust. We don't know. But we do know something axiomatic, that Hashem gives us whatever we need when we need it, and Hashem does everything for the best. So probably the best bit of self-assessment that we could do is to make sure that our brain and heart are not stables for fantasy horses. That's it. We're not going to feed the fantasy horses. No, no hay for you, no grain for you. And some people reach the age of 95 without ever having done self-assessment. That's something. One of the recent times was in America. I saw a gentleman, if we call him so, at an airport, and he was much older than me, but with his knobby knees, he was wearing Bermuda shorts, and he had a Michael Jordan basketball shirt. Michael Jordan, here, sir, excuse me, you've got these arthritic knees, and you're past the age of 80, and you're still dreaming of being a Michael Jordan. I mean, isn't it time to put emphasis on something else? No, you could see he's wearing his favorite basketball team hat. This is okay. The guy has probably spends his life in front of a screen watching basketball, and he's got to show how he's young and basketball. He's got his scrum that someday he's going to be like that. He's still past 80. It's the people, they live their fantasy. They don't realize that they're walking around with their fantasy horse, and a horse has got its head sticking out of the pump. And people look at you, well, maybe not politically, not socially correct to go and start beating this guy with a stick over the head in the middle of the airport. But it's just like that, just like that. So we have to examine ourselves. Am I like that? I see the villager, I see somebody else, and I see it's ridiculous. And it's a point of ridicule. But am I like that? So this is what we have to examine ourselves if we are not happy with what Hashem gives us, or if we are. Because that nasty little voice in our ear always tells us that we need more. Whatever you're making money, no, you need more. Whatever you have in life, no, you need more. You have to need more. And it's nothing, it's the words of the evil inclination, the voice of the inclination. So in the words of the Gemara, that voice is like a fly that's buzzing in your ear. That's the evil inclination. How do you recognize whether the evil inclination is speaking to you or whether a voice of holiness is speaking to you? In Song of Songs, King Solomon says, Matzitz min hakim. He peeks through the shutters. Peeks through the shutters. When you get a voice of holiness, it's a whisper. A word, 2 words, 3 words. And your soul feels warm from that. That's Hashem talking to you. When you hear, you need this, you need that, you need that. Take a look at that. Ta, 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 ta. That's the little itty bitty nasty committee, which is the evil inclination. That's right there. And you hear it all day long. It's like a fly that buzzes in your ear, and you chase after the fly and you can't find him. So those that listen to that voice, the second voice, the nagging voice, they're never satisfied until the bitter day when they find out that everything they had was fantasy. That is the worst case scenario for a person's last day on earth, with both the Gemara and the Zohar, that says when a person like that leaves the earth, he lets out a scream that's heard from one world to the other. You could hear it from all across the Milky Way galaxy, and in terms of the world to come, it's close. It's like crossing the street. From one end of the spiritual universe to the other end of the spirit, they could hear the scream, and the voice says, "Let me back in," because right away, you could people with the NDE, near-death experience, describing when they see the white light, the caressing white light, the loving white light, and that's Hashem. But before Hashem reveals himself to them, but this is Hashem begins to reveal himself, because now they've left the body, and Hashem shows his goodness, and shows his benevolence, and shows his kindness, and shows that it's a love and a beauty of beyond any love you could ever dream of, beyond any beauty you could ever dream of. So the neshama says, "Let me back in. I want to get there. Let me back in." It's too late. It's too late. The game is over, and the whistle's been blown. And that is the beginning of purgatory, the embarrassment and the remorse that the soul has that was pursuing the horse in the pump and not pursuing Hashem and Amunah. So horses They have tails. Now does horse get rid of the flies? The horse swats it with their tails. Uh, but we also have something we could swat the flies with. It's not a fly swatter. It's with Amuna. And Amuna is being happy with what we have. And by Amuna, we swat the flies, get rid of them. Okay, so now if we open up Likutei Moran to the second paragraph, the second section of Torah 72, Rebbe Nachman explains that the evil inclination has many forms. Rebbe Nachman is now bringing this down to our eyes. Okay, what do we just see? What do we just see in the story? The evil inclination is very vulgar for a base and material-oriented people, and their evil inclination is likewise base and vulgar. In other words, for the people that chase money, that chase the opposite sex, that chase, some people chase the same sex, heaven forbid, the people chase all types of tivus, all types of lust. Anytime could be lust of food, could be lust of alcohol, could be lust of drugs. For the majority, this is their evil inclination. The vast majority of people in the world, their evil inclination is in the blood itself. We learned about the evil inclination in the blood when we learned in our two introductory lessons to the 13 principles of Amunah on Amunah Hour. You could go on laserbeams.com and go back and through that spiritual anatomy, that the blood in the left side of the heart, that is contaminated by the evil inclination down in the spleen. That's unfiltered blood, and left side, that becomes, the heart is vanquished by the evil inclination. So that's Rebbe Nachman. He alludes this very, very quick. He alludes to this. He says that's the blood in the heart's left ventricle, left side of the heart, which is very strong. It's quite strong. So the turmoil that these people have is from the impurity in the blood. What do you mean impurity in blood? I went to a hematologist, did a blood test. He didn't tell me anything about the evil inclination. No, Rebbe Nachman says like this. Rebbe Nachman says in positive, he says when a person does a mitzvah, for example, let's suppose you're doing a big mitzvah. You're talking to Hashem in personal prayer. And as you're talking to Hashem in personal prayer, you're taking a walk, or you're riding your bike, or whatever you're doing, and you're using your whole body. So your whole body is joining into that mitzvah. There are a lot of people, for example, me personally, it's much easier for me to do personal prayer when I'm walking than when I sit, because the Yetzer Hara attacks all the time. We could use a lot more sleep at night with what's on our plates. We sit stable for a while to get drowsy. When I'm walking, I'm not drowsy. I'm walking. So Rebbe Nachman says if the blood that participates in the action of a mitzvah, that blood is purified. So the blood in the left heart, the blood in the left side of the heart that is not yet purified is the blood that has not yet participated in doing a mitzvah. That's why we have to do Hashem's commandments all the time, because the body is all the time producing new blood cells. And we have to be serving Hashem all the time to make sure that our body is purified. So when the body is not purified, it's those impure blood cells, the impurity of the blood, that creates the spiritual blockage in the left side of the heart. And this is what King David says in Psalms, Libi halal bekirbi. He says, my heart on the left side, it's hollow. He corrected everything. There was no even blood on the left side of his heart. Circumvented it. So Rabbi Nachman says, in truth, any person with a minimal of clear spiritual awareness. I love that. So we got spiritual awareness. That I was not the first person to translate it. Rabbi Chaim Kramer also translate dat as spiritual awareness. Person with a minimal of spiritual awareness regards this evil inclination as immense foolishness and madness. He doesn't have to muster any resolve to order it or defeat it. You just take a person who is a person with a strong belief in Hashem. Let's take, for example, a observant Jew or a upright Noahide, and person maybe not have the most attractive spouse in the world, maybe not the best marriage in the world, but he strongly believes in the Torah, strongly believes in the 7 Noahide mitzvahs. And the evil inclination says, hey, look at that person. That's much better looking than your spouse. It's not a test for him. It's not a test. Get out of here. Get out of here. When I'm married to the same young man, the same young lady that's going to be my man and my woman until 150 years and beyond. Get out of here. There's a person with spiritual awareness, a person that's connected to Hashem. This vulgar evil inclination, it's not going to talk to him at all. But how many people are like that? Okay, we have it in our group. So maybe say nobody in our group needs this lesson, but at least we need to know who the enemy is to stay away from the enemy to make sure that we stay on this higher level. So the general populace considers this a severe test. It's a severe test for a person. Let's say a person may be casually Jewish, and he walks by a shrimp restaurant, a selfish restaurant. Oh, and it's overtaking him, and he's trying to think, and for him, it's a severe test. Come on. Come on, you should believe it. Hashem's strong enough. Okay, so it smells good, but your Torah, your Torah. Is it worth to you a moment, a moment of lewd, forbidden pleasure, and plug in whatever that lewd, forbidden pleasure is, to upset Hashem? We live for which our whole purpose, like to call it gratification to Hashem. Stop. What is the fear of Hashem? There are three levels of fear of Hashem. The basic level of fear of Hashem as a person is fear of punishment. Fear of punishment. No, I got to do it. If I do that, I'm going to get punished. And the second is the fear of the sin itself. How can I commit that sin? Because if I commit that sin, I'm going to lose my world to come. It's still an egotistically oriented fear of Hashem. But the higher level is a fear of Hashem. Wow. You know what Hashem did for me today? That did my heart, my lungs, my income, the food on my table, which is cooked. We cooked for Shabbat. The Shabbat meals are cooked already. And what was it? They're fish and meat and chicken, everything good, delicacies. Thank you, Hashem. And what Hashem does for me all the time, and the way Hashem guides me. And I thought the thing was going to be a very difficult day, and it was smooth as silk. And what Hashem does for me when I don't deserve it, and just the love. How can I do something to cause anguish to such a loving Father in heaven? That is the upper level of Emunah. That's called, that the upper level of fear of Hashem. That's called Yirat Hitromimut. That is the level of fear of Hashem where you love someone so much, the last thing in the world you do is to hurt him. So maybe you love some type of chocolate cream pie, but your husband said to you sweetly, sweetheart, try and control yourself. Yeah, I want you to look, you look so much nicer when you're a little bit slim, and I like when you're slim. I don't want you getting. So before she stops and goes and has that emotional binge, goes to the refrigerator, what we said last night is a minute on the lips and a year on the hips. That before she has that binge, she thinks about her love for her husband, her husband's love for her. How can I jeopardize my husband's love for me? How can I do that? How can I let myself go? So they overcome that. So the general public considers refraining from substance, refraining from indulging in unhealthy food. And you can see they have what we call in nutrition the SAD diet, SAD, that's standard American diet. All this junk food and all this people, it's unhealthy, and people eating unhealthy. You see people eating a breakfast of sugary cornflakes and sugary reconstituted grape juice and sugar, and then they wonder why they have a sugar crash at 10 in the morning, and they're done. No, with the breakfast should be a good chunk of protein, whether it's a piece of salmon or tuna, and lots of veggies and fiber, and to keep you going, the protein and the fiber, and to keep you going all day long. Okay, so even for a vulgar person, I say what a vulgar or crass, whether it's in British English, in American English, vulgar is nasty. In British English, vulgar is crass. It's coarse. Okay, so David over the years has turned me into a bit of a Brit. Okay, so, but what I mean, a coarse person, a person who's spiritually coarse, this for him is a big test. But a person with spiritual awareness, no. He's not going to jeopardize his or her relationship with Hashem, because all he has to do, or she has to do, is to look at the greatness of Hashem. And Rebbe Nachman says, look here what King David wrote in Psalm 135, verse 5. For I know that God is great and Hashem is above all heavenly powers. Stop and contemplate for a moment, just for a minute. The Yetzer does not want you to think That little buzzy voice in your ear doesn't want you to think. Wants you to be instinct and act on instinct. Don't act on instinct. Act on instinct are terrible decisions. You have to stop and think. We have in spirituality what's called the 3 second rule. The 3 second rule is just like the 3 second rule in basketball. They have the key. You can't stand in there for 3 seconds just under the basket and wait for someone to pass the ball. You have to run in and out. Now, that's 3 second rule. You lose the ball. You have the 3 second rule with evil inclination. The evil inclination, that buzz in their ear, says, do this, do this, do this. If for 3 seconds we can remember Hashem, then he can't buzz after 3 seconds. And then we can bring back in our Amuna logic, not our logic, our Amuna logic. What does Amuna say about this? Amuna says about this, I have to be happy with my lot in life. That doesn't mean I can pray for, you could pray for more. No problem. Go ahead, pray for more. You want something more? You want a better salary? You want better health? By all means, go pray for it. Go for it. But here's the difference. I'm going to ask Hashem for what I want. I can ask Hashem for anything. He's a loving Father in heaven. Okay, so yes or no, or maybe tomorrow, or maybe the next day, or maybe I need to pray more. Okay, but for what I have right now, thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem, for the pain in my muscles. Thank you, Hashem, for whatever hurt. Thank you, Hashem, for that. Okay, Hashem, I can think much better without the headache, but Hashem, take no problem. But as long as I have it, everything you do is for the very best. And everything you do, this is not Hasidic piety. It's in the basic code of Jewish law. Basic code of Jewish law, Shulchan Aruch, chapter 222, clause 2 says, right from the Gemara, Tractate Brachot, a person is obligated to thank Hashem for the seemingly bad, just as he or she thanks Hashem for the good. That's it. This is law. It's like, don't eat milk and meat. Don't eat shellfish. This is a basic law. And nobody's being holy. But this particular point is what uplifts us from the crass evil inclination that Rebbe Nachman is talking about to the higher level evil inclination, which we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, to this higher level, he says it's much more difficult. So Rebbe Nachman says when we contemplate Hashem's greatness, it's impossible to describe this by the written word, because Hashem's greatness is known to each individual, to each one of us, commensurate with what our spiritual level is and what we can fathom in our heart. A person that's much more spiritual can fathom a greater concept of Hashem than a person who's less spiritual. So there's nothing is considered a test as soon as we're able to hook into Hashem's greatness. Rebbe Nachman says like this: don't pay attention to the buzzing evil inclination. Just say Hashem is great. Psalm 135, verse 4. I know that Hashem is great and that Hashem is above all heavenly powers. So if you're above all heavenly powers, above all earthly powers, remember Hashem's greatness. Remember Hashem's greatness. And then we don't fall into crassness. We don't fall into vulgarity, to vulgar behavior. So when someone merits estimating, contemplating Hashem's greatness in his heart, then there's no more vulgar test. And yeah, it doesn't have to muster any resolve. Don't have to, when you go patrol, no, let me stay away from that cake. Let me stay away from that forbidden food. Let me stay away from that person of the opposite sex. No, it doesn't need to. Okay, so that's easy. We contemplate Hashem's greatness, Rebbe Nachman says, and we have no horses and pumps. Okay, no imaginary horses. However, next paragraph, Torah 72, there is a form of evil inclination that is a holy angel. But it's nonetheless an evil inclination, and someone must have strength and resolve to flee from it, because this is an aspect of severe judgments. In other words, what's severe judgment? The person has done a flaw, the flaw will come and torment him in an evil inclination. And this aspect is, what will this do? This will get a person to become angry at something. It's a more sophisticated inclination. That you go and you hear people speaking in the synagogue. You become really angry. You're ready to, oh, this is an angel. Be careful. Just be careful. Oh no, I love Hashem. I love Hashem, but I'm going to go and I'm going to take these highbrows. Who do they think they are speaking in the synagogue? And it gets you angry. Hold it, my brother. Don't you know what the Zohar says? The Zohar says that when we lose our temper, we lose our control of ourselves. And that the good inclination, Hashem can only hover his presence, the law Hashem made, in a place of happiness, in a place of joy. I can't be joyful. I can't be joyful when someone I see someone doing a violation of Hashem's law, and it can't be joyful, but I don't have to get angry. So I can see right there, see somebody, Hashem, open up their hearts, open up their minds. I can uplift this. Hashem, help them get closer to you. Hashem, have pity. Rebbe Nachman says in a case like that, for example, when you have this holy evil inclination, turn your anger into compassion. Turn your anger into pity. And this is how we overcome that. But this is all of it. This is our group. Our group, for the most part, you're fighting angels. That's the evil inclination. Because a group of the people are earnest and they're seeking Hashem. The proof is that they're with us once, twice a week to get closer to Hashem. So when we do something entirely good, then this is the way we kill this upper level evil inclination. That's the angel, because that mitigates the severe judgments. We do something to mitigate severe judgments. By mitigating severe judgments, we get rid of that higher level evil inclination. That's a little bit about the evil inclination for the public and the evil inclination for the evil public. And you have to know one thing, that Rebbe Nachman warns us that this is a 120-year-long battle, that the battle is over the moment that we leave this earth. We hope that the moment we leave this earth, Rebbe Nachman said about himself, he says, before he left the earth, he says, when I leave, it's going to be bye-bye. It's going to be bye-bye. That's all. He's going to continue serving Hashem, just going the same way, going higher and higher and higher. And he left the earth in a situation where he said, I can't stay here anymore because my body can't stand my soul. My soul is getting so higher and higher and higher. My body can't go with it. My body's it needs more oxygen. But I can't stay down here for the body, because for Rebbe Nachman, it was a death when his soul wasn't getting closer to Hashem every day. So as long as the body was on, it was obvious his whole life, since he was a child, he subjugated his body to the soul, to the desire of the soul. And this is really the game plan. This is something we have to pray for. Hashem, let my body be subservient to my soul. This is something we also spoke about in spiritual anatomy. What happens when we have the upward flow and the downward flow? We have the evil inclination is in the liver. Just to review this very quickly. The war is for the heart. We have the holy neshama in the brain, and the holy neshama in the brain, which is a tiny spark of Hashem. Okay, and we have the evil inclination and his wife that are down in the liver and the spleen, and they're contaminating the blood. Now, the heart has a right side and a left side. When the evil inclination subjugates the heart and overruns the heart, it takes over the left side. Left side is very strong and floods the right side with contaminated blood. And then the neshama up in the brain is choked. It's like in a flood. She has to flee to what's the opposite of the dungeon? And in the citadel, they have the citadel and the spire of the castle. They have where the princess is trapped. What's the word for that, David, in English? Up in the spire, you can see where the princess is sticking out her head in the medieval picture. They have it prepped. So imagine that the holy neshama up in the brain is trapped. She's trapped. She's the princess trapped. And she's subjugated. She loses her power. So now the evil inclination and right down the bloodstream, they were down the body. This is when the body is completely physical oriented. And the body now subjugates the soul, and the body vanquishes the soul. The soul is vanquished. Now the opposite happens. When the soul is strong, when we learn Amunah, we practice Amunah, do our mitzvot, and we give the princess her strength. The princess, her strength is in her soft voice. It's not in her biceps. The princess tells the heart, give yourself to me. And we both go to Hashem. So the princess succeeds in occupying the right side of the heart. When the outside is completely occupied, the heart doesn't pay attention to the left side. The left side is choked. Left side is choked, and the evil inclination loses power. Then what happens, once that happens, remember that the evil inclination is an angel. The evil inclination, he gets paid, Hashem pays him to tempt people. Okay, but the evil inclination is not particularly happy. He doesn't get a higher salary when he knocks people down. But when people overcome the evil inclination is the angel of Hashem. The evil inclination is happy also. He's happy to be knocked down. Okay. So this is what happens when the soul overcomes the heart. Then the body becomes subservient to the heart. And the body becomes subservient to the soul and serving to Hashem. And that's where your body becomes a willing agent. And you say, you get up, you worked all week long, but you want to get up to the early prayer quorum, the early minyan on Shabbat. And the body says, no problem, boss, no problem, I'm out. And the body says after a heavy Shabbat meal, the soul says, I'm going to learn for an hour, learn Torah for an hour before we go to sleep. Said, no problem, boss. But the opposite person, the body oriented, nobody thinks about that. Eat more food and then go right to sleep. So you can see this, it works as it could translate this in a practical thing. But this is what Rebbe Nachman, the whole story we go in, Rebbe Nachman, there's more Torahs about this. And there's another, really quick, another Rebbe Nachman tells another story that is very similar about that in the marketplace, Friday morning in the marketplace. This is almost the exact same story. So if I have time, I'll tell it. Like this. The evil inclination is now dressed up. He goes there dressed up as if somebody buying in the marketplace. Now, in the Shtetlach, in the village, the Ukrainian, the Polish, Russian villages, on Friday morning, there wasn't refrigeration, there wasn't frozen food. People were all in the market buying their fresh food, their fresh fish and their fresh chickens and their fresh veggies and fresh everything. So there you have Friday morning, right after Shavuot, people pray early. And the housewives, everybody, at 8 o'clock in the morning, the market is jam-packed, like Grand Central Station in New York. So the women are waiting for their chickens, and they're there. The butcher's helper, he's flicking the chickens, and the feathers flying, and the shoichet is there, the starter, and the chickens are squawking, and the women are squawking, and I'm first, and you're first, and this thing. Comes along the evil inclination, and the evil inclination says to the butcher, he says, I bet you can't guess what I got in my hand. He says, yeah, get that shit, I'm busy. No, he said, you don't understand. You don't understand. What, you could retire for what I have in my hand. And he said, well, what do you have in your hand? He said, I can't show you. Come on, come on, I can't show you. No, come and show me what you had. So all of a sudden he convinces, I'm shorting the story, but he convinces the butcher to chase him. Well, the butcher chases him. And one lady, her chicken is half plucked and half not plucked. She's got to go and cook. Another lady needs to be served, and she hadn't waited on yet. And now the pluckers, they leave the chickens on the floor, half plucked, half plucked. And the whole chicken market, they're running after the chicken butcher and the shoichet, and they're chasing after this man running down the main road in the market with 10. So he stops by the greengrocer. And the greengrocer's got the same thing. People are buying their onions and their potatoes and their beets. And he said, you don't know what I got in my hand. He said, the same thing fools them. Well, it got not much of convincing where the greengrocer took off his apron, started running after him. And all the women in the greengrocer, they come running after him. Now you got the butcher and the greengrocer. Well, he keeps on going. He comes to the baker. The baker, women, the baker, not everybody knows how to bake challahs. So they goes to the baker, and people are waiting for their challahs, and they're waiting for the challahs. The challahs, he doesn't have a whole inventory of 1,000 challahs. Every time there's a new oven, a batch of 25 challahs coming out. They're waiting for their challahs, and they're in line, and I'm first. No, you're first. And in the middle, the butcher and the baker and the baker's helper, and they're taking out. He says, "Oh, the baker, you don't know what I got in my hand." So they finally, to make a long story short, the whole marketplace is chasing after the evil inclination. He comes to the end of the market and hits the city limits, and he opens his hand. He ruined Shabbat for the whole village. It's late. People get up bed. They can't have time to cook. They don't have time to buy. It's such a balagan. It's such a chaos. And this he ruined for the whole village. That is the same principle as the horse and the pump. That's Rebbe Nachman is again talking about this mirage, this image that people run after, this fantasy from the evil inclination, and they waste their time doing what they're supposed to. So I hope maybe with the help of these two stories, if we can at least learn that the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, comes to us with these fantasy images and just say, get out of here. Bye-bye, get out of here. Take a long walk off a short bridge, Or if you go to the next grade, you graduate to second grade, but not in my school. Bye bye. That's it. So with the Rebbe Nachman's help and Hashem's guidance, Rebbe Nachman's coaching and Hashem's guidance, we should all be able to overcome the evil inclination and get closer to Hashem until Hashem brings us Mashiach and Kingdom of David, rebuilt Holy Temple, speeding our days. Amen.